touch was taking him 5 yards back into the centre of midfield where the pressure was. So it was doing the opposite of what we need as a number 10, and Jack Byrne offers that. But again, it is a big step up to international football.
A 30-minute no-nonsense preview of the weekend's Premier League action.
I think they'll do well in the Champions League. They'll get to the knockout stages, and if they get a kind of B-level team, not one of the really big guns, they could get to a quarter-final, and you never know.
The Paddy Power Half Hour, every Friday from 12 midday, only on OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
The Cheltenham Show
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Paddy Power. Cheltenham's coming home.
9:10 on this Friday morning. You're very welcome along to the Cheltenham Show. If you're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio, by the way, you're watching us on the YouTube channel this morning. We have been live every morning this week from 9 o'clock, giving you the very latest news and tips with our Cheltenham team in studio and live from the racecourse as well. All brought to you in association with our Cheltenham partner, Paddy Power. Cheltenham is coming home, and here's a bit of a flavour of what's coming your way over the next 30 minutes or thereabouts. We're going to get stuck into that race card for day 4. It does go ahead. We'll get the thoughts of the lads who are over on course as well, just to see exactly what sort of an atmosphere there's been there yesterday, and obviously heading into the final day as well. It's JD against Paddy Power as well. We get their latest update on where that battle is at. Thom's tips have been pretty much the biggest success story of the week. He's had 6 winners, I think, so we'll get Thom's tips for the final day as well, and Johnny Ward's wager a little bit later in the day too. So all of that to come over the next 30 minutes or thereabouts. I mentioned Thom Malone, who's in studio with us. He's a superstar of the week. Thom.
Thanks, Adrian.
6 winners.
Been some good prize winners. Look, there have been some big disappointments as well. Let's not pick this up too much. We had some short prize turnovers yesterday. Unfortunately, Faheen couldn't do the business for us yesterday, but my goodness, to see Sam Crow back, it wasn't great for the pocket, but it was great for the soul.
You got very emotionally vested in Faheen, Thom.
Look, there's no getting away from that. When a horse is 12 years old and keeps turning up like that, and actually he had a couple of excuses yesterday. You talk about a horse who's 12 years old and you think, oh, maybe he's lost his zest for the game. It was actually yesterday the opposite. He was too keen and too free in the early stages, and that probably just hurt him in the end. He was probably just a little too keen early doors, pulled a little hard, and look, he was only beaten a length and won the finishes of the week. Davy Russell was magnificent on Sam Crow, drive and finish, where everyone in the office was actually unsure who had gotten it on the line. It was so tight, but it was actually a brilliant piece of jockeyship by Davy Russell, because what he did is he gathered the horse. Like a lot of the time when you're just watching a race, you just see the jockey and they're just throwing their hands forward. Yeah. But he actually literally physically pushed the horse's head down to make sure he nodded him on the line. And still in the photo, you actually see all of Davy Russell's weight is completely in the wrong position. He's right over the horse's withers, arm out like that, like you'd see in a flat finish. And I mean, that was a difference. I mean, he won by that. So just that piece of jockeyship he literally pushed his hands up right up between the horse's ears, and that was the winning and losing of the race in the end, after giving him a brilliant ride in the horse that hasn't delivered on his promise that he'd shown as a novice. We thought he was the second coming. Before this season, he hadn't won a race since winning that Ballymore Properties Novices Hurdle 2 years ago. So it's a brilliant redemption story. A horse who has been expensive to follow, a bookie's friend. We said it to Paddy Power here yesterday. Every time there's an update from Gordon Elliott's yard saying Sam Crow is back, it's been music to bookmakers' ears. But yesterday it was the punches who struck back.
And a lovely moment after the race as well between Davy Russell and Eddie O'Leary, who'd have, obviously there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, plenty of history there. Look, Davy Russell has shown exactly how to deal with adversity. He was famously brought for a cup of tea a couple of years ago and relieved of his duties by Jigginstown House Stud when they demoted him from top rider. Look, Brian Cooper's had similar, and hopefully today he can deliver on latest exhibition and get him back in action. But yeah, Davy Russell, absolute class act. He was brilliant on Envoy during the week. But yeah, to ride a big Jigginstown winner in the absence of Jack Kennedy was a huge moment for him. And look, he thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a bit of class from both men there, just to say it's all right now.
They might have gone for another cup of tea afterwards. So
yeah.
Delighted to say that we have on the line from Cheltenham, John Duggan and Paddy Power. Good morning, lads.
Adrian, Thom, Paddy, how are you all?
Good. Paddy, we were chatting to John a little bit earlier on about the fact that racing goes ahead at all. Are you surprised by it?
Yeah, I mean, the context of what's going on in Ireland, I am, but over here it seems to just be a very different kind of attitude, I guess. And Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say I'm surprised because it's Cheltenham and it's rolling along anyway. But yeah, yesterday I wouldn't have been surprised, put it that way, if they had made an announcement that it was going to run behind closed doors or something. But yeah, it's really just two different tones. And you talk to Irish people and they're kind of going, "Geez, I'm surprised it's on." English people going, "Well, sure, I was on the tube this morning." Do you know that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So there's a very different kind of cavalier attitude from one, and I'm much more tempered and kind of careful and unsure. Everybody's kind of people who are there kind of go, "Jesus, I don't know." Like, and it's because the people who were over there yesterday is when everything kind of went serious lockdown, you know. And then so when you're there yesterday, people are kind of going like, "Cheapers, should I be here?" and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's funny actually. The uncertainty is definitely the commonality on both sides of the water, and you're right, obviously, in terms of the outlook from both, and it feels like there's very different, obviously, set of leadership coming from one side of the water and the other. But look, we do press ahead, and racing gets underway obviously at 1:30. Before we look ahead to the card today and mark people's cards as to what's coming up, in terms of the week that it's been for you, Paddy, obviously with that we've just been discussing Sam Crow yesterday and Paisley Park coming up short as well.
Yeah, funny. Yesterday was a really good day for the bookies and for us anyway. And I think mainly it was down to Paisley Park getting beat in the race that we sponsored, which was kind of, I guess, probably appropriate that we had a big prize winner of a bookie-sponsored race. But that was the big difference. So the week was probably going just against us into the early part of Wednesday with a couple of short ones. Then we got a few favourites beaten. And so rolling Wednesday into Thursday, it puts the bookies well and truly in front from our perspective anyway. But still, it was one of those. You look at the results yesterday, and you could have backed a few of them. You know what I mean? So there'd be a few people kicking themselves, saying, "Geez, I had a look at that," and I looked at that, and like Listigar Oscar, probably not, but some of the other winners definitely could have backed them.
Yeah, Paddy, I was delighted with Lisnagar Oscar having backed him for the Albert Bartlett in 2019, but I think there's a few in that boat as well.
Yeah, exactly. And there you go. And you're such a shrewd operator, Thom, that you're just way ahead of yourself.
Such a hipster. Such a hipster. Yeah. I backed him before
exactly.
He won.
Yeah, exactly. You're so hip, you spelled Thom with a TH.
Right, we'll bounce around a bit here, but I want to get in on the Gold Cup to begin with, and it's obviously the one thing that everybody's talking about. And sort of looking through it, I was like, obviously everything is pointing to album photo odds and tipsters and the entirety of it. Maybe not giving enough respect to the chasers, Paddy, because there's a good bunch of young horses coming through there.
Well, I don't know. You see, the thing is, if you remember, Best Mate is the last horse to win back-to-back Gold Cups. So it's obviously really hard to do. Now, there's lots of theories why, but one theory would be that Best Mate used to be very lightly raced. I mean, he used to get criticised at the time for we didn't get to see him enough because he only have his prep run, and then he'd turn up at Cheltenham and win. And Album Photos had a similar kind of preparation. So maybe it's coming around to the idea that to win the Gold Cup, you need to have a relatively easy season leading into it to leave yourself fresh to put it all in on the big day. Now, he's 3-1 favourite, Album Photos, so he's probably short enough. To be honest, he's just favourite. Santini's drifted a little bit this morning. He's he was joint favourite yesterday, the two of them. And Santini's for Nicky Henderson, had a great start to the week, and he's out to 9-2. Santini, not a very sexy horse, but a really good tower stayer. We saw the last day at Cheltenham's Trials Day. He was pretty impressive winning his race. He kind of grinds it out.
An ignorant galloper, Paddy. Thom described him earlier today.
Yeah, exactly. All the racing cliches that don't really mean that much apply to Santini, right? And then the other ones, but it's not just about them. You know, Lost in Translation is a horse I kind of like, so I'm just a bit worried about this always happens in these races. You're kind of over-egging like things like trainer form. I think Colin Tizzard's horses just haven't been really in the frame this week. But I like Lost in Translation, so I'm kind of tempered by the trainer form, which is in my eyes, and I'm probably wrong about that. Delta Work has just improved all year. Gordon Elliott can't do a thing wrong. He's back. He's basically training almost every winner. So here you go. I'm making a case for 4 or 5 in the race. It's a really open Gold Cup. There's not that many runners, which makes it easier for the horses in it. I mean, coming down to the off time, my money will go on Album Photo.
Right. Okay. Well, it's good that I take as a total novice in this regard that. Some solace to the fact that there's a bit of odds about Santini now as well. John, what sort of way are you leaning? A few contenders there. What are you thinking?
The one I've gone for each way is Monley at about 22-1. Really good jumper. Hasn't run since Christmas when was just touched off by Delta Work at Leopardstown. Has been second at the festival before, twice in the Albert Bartlett Hurdle and in the Sunlions Chase. The question mark with Monley, does he stay? That's the question mark. I don't know whether he does or not. That's probably factored into his price. But Henry de Bromhead thinks he will. His breeding suggests he might. And I think if he does, I think he's got a big chance. Rachel Blackmore, I think, will get a good tune out of him. I think he jumps well, which I think for some horses, Delta Works jumping at times can be sticky. Album Photo, I tipped in the race last year, but I'm still not convinced about his jumping. Santini, I don't know if has the class to win the race. Lost in Translation's coming off the back of a bad run. Clandes Obo has had a perfect prep and won probably the biggest trial at King George, but I don't know if Clandes Obo stays, but I would think he's got a better chance than he did last year. Ken Boy, I don't like at the track. That's why I've gone for Monley each way.
Okay. Just in terms of those contenders, Tom, obviously, I guess we're in the position where we're making a case against Album Photo here, and we've spoken about Santini and the RSA runner-up obviously last year, the Ignorant Galloper, as you've described, Delta Work, both Santini and Delta Work with good form coming into it in a way that maybe Lost in Translation doesn't have.
Yeah, and essentially Delta Work and Santini are bringing the same Cheltenham form line in, i.e. from last year's RSA. Look, there's been more support for Album Photo, 3-1. I actually just watched the race this morning. That's how much of a sado I am. And everything went absolutely perfectly for him last year. The position that Paul Townend got himself in a mile out worked itself out in every way possible, including when they bypassed the third last. And so he just had the most perfect dream run, and he won well. And watching that race again, you think, well, why can't he win it again? But literally every single thing went his way. So at 3-1, I would just err on the side of caution, just on the price. I'm not saying he can't win. I'm just saying on the prices, he doesn't perhaps make the most attractive betting proposition. That's why I'm with Santini. I cannot see him kicked out of the frame. The worry about Lost in Translation is the stable's form. They are just, it's been like that for a couple of weeks now, and that's a real negative. The unknown and the opposite side of that is Clandes Obo, who watched that King George again, and he absolutely kicked them out of the ground, and he won going away. They've changed things around. He wasn't beaten that far last year when they probably made too much use of him. Native River and Might Bite went out early enough, as happens in a Gold Cup, and he kind of seemed to track them and then just fade. I imagine he'd be ridden a little more conservatively this time, and he's going there fresh. And like I say, anything that, I mean, bar Santini, the rest of them are doing that, going there fresh. You know, you've got Clandes Elbow, you got Album Photo going there fresh. Delta Work has actually been unconsidered despite doing very, very little wrong this season. He's won 2 Grade 1s at Leopardstown.
Gordon Elliott saying that the longer trip might suit him as well. Yeah,
may do. Presenting Percy, of course, everyone's doyen from last year, but he's a 14-1 shot. So surely if you back Presenting Percy last year at 100-30, you'd be considered having a little tickle this year at 14-1 on ground that'll be more suitable, despite the evidence we've seen since.
I think we've got a good sense from all three as to where you're headed on that one. So just before we bounce around the card for any for any of you to sweep up any other bets that we should be sending our audience direction, the head-to-head charity bet, lads, which way are we going, Paddy?
Is it just in the Gold Cup, or can I pick any race?
It's your show. You decide.
Right, okay. I make the rules. Write the rules as we go along. I'm going to go for, in the Albert part of the second race, or the third race rather, I'm going to go for Sempo for Joseph O'Brien. It's about a 10-1 shot, so it could be rewarding to back that one. I think looks progressive, had a nice quiet build up to this race, and some of the others had hard races in the trial, so I think Sempo could come there fresh. And I just think it's a bit strange that Joseph hasn't really featured yet at the festival, and I kind of think it's unthinkable that you won't have a winner before the end of the week.
All right, good logic. JD?
Bill away for the Fox Hunters for William Mullins and Patrick Mullins. This horse tuned up well last time, won well, stayed on strongly to win at Naas. He's been bought for the race. He's been trained for the race. I think Willie's stable is doing well. Patrick knows how to ride in these races, and I think he's got a big chance of winning the Fox Hunters. Bill away is about a 9-2 shot with Paddy Power. That's my nap of the day.
All right, we shall see a little bit later today, lads, what side of that you've ended up on. Paddy, just all favourites, obviously, most favourites beaten this week, so you're presuming you're pushing things out a little bit today?
Yeah, full of generosity today. You know yourself, always the case, us generous bookies. But today again, it's like in the very first race, you have a favourite taking a position. I actually kind of fancy it, Goshen, and then so taking a chance in some of the other ones. Only a 5-2 favourite in the Triumph Herd, and then all through the card, you got a couple of wide open races. We'd be going after everything, but you have no choice at Cheltenham anyway. You fill the bag regardless.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. So just to sweep up around then some of the other races, Tom, you might kick us off in terms of what we should be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, start of the Triumph. Paddy just mentioned there, Goshen starts favourite. He's unbeaten. Probably like to start favourite. There is a concern about this horse. He's an absolute tearaway, and this race could be an absolute bloodbath because there's Goshen, who likes to be forward. There's All Mankind, who has no brakes. He's just one way going, and he just jumps out and goes. Solo's looked very good, and it's a fascinating race. I really like Solo, actually, for Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden. I think Johnny Ward does as well. So that'll kick things off. The County after that is a race you have to have an each-way bet in, if anything. But something to note here, JP McManus has won all of the handicap hurdles on the card so far at Cheltenham. So there's still 2 to go today. So that's worth pointing out to see if we can take the County and the last one as well, the Martin Pipes. So it'll be quite an achievement for one owner to win. Like the most difficult races to win should be the handicaps, and he has cleaned up all the handicap hurdles so far and winning the Boodles, the Pertemps and the Coral Cup.
Okay, Paddy, anything that you want to push our direction?
I think in the county hurdle, that race, Mo Hayed's a previous winner of the race, and there's a couple of the ones towards, it's about 12 to 1 shot for each way. A couple of ones towards the top of the market, like that, have been very well told, like St. Roy for JP McManus. Just I think doesn't have enough experience for a race like the county hurdle, where it's very hustly and bustly. So I'd be inclined to look at something with a bit more experience. So Mo Hayed, a previous winner for me.
Mo Hayed, very good. And JD?
I've gone for Aramon for Willie Mullins. I think he's a graded horse in a handicap. And I think that Willie's quite sweetened him with Paul Tennant in the saddle. And I think Aramon, with that form through Classical Dream last year, has definitely got a big chance. And I remember Arctic Fire running well in this race before Wicklow Brave has won it. And I think Aramon at 13 to 2 with Paddy Power is a good each-way bet.
All right, lads, be well. Thanks a million.
All right, take care.
Paddy and John on the line there from Cheltenham with marking a card for the day. If that's something you want to get into, obviously you've got a few tips now gone your direction to get stuck into over the course of the afternoon. We're going to get Johnny Ward on the line very shortly to get his thoughts on what he thinks what way the final day is going to go, and see if he can pick us a few winners as well. Nobody to compete with Thom, obviously, joint winner of the
No,
over the course.
Don't worry, we can. I did this at Royal Ascot and had to wait until the 5th race on day 3 before I had a winner. So listen,
that's the way it works.
This happens. Just one thing, Paddy brought up Joseph O'Brien. There is obviously an incredibly precocious talent. A friend, I'd be quite familiar with. Brendan Powell, who would work in the Ardney space, he's assistant now in 2 horses. He did mention that they were sweet on this week to back up Paddy's argument. They are pretty happy about Sempo, and they also do like the chances of Front View, who's roundabout favourite for the 5:30. So Sempo, they are quite sweet in his chance. So I did have Cheltenham preview night with Joseph as well, and he mentioned him. Joseph was not.
Yeah, that's in his charity bet.
Yeah, so Joseph is quite sweet in the chances. Sempo in the Albert Bartlett there at 250, and obviously Front View has a favourites chance. John O'Neill Jr. on board for Joseph O'Brien, a really good combination that won the 4-year-old hurdle last year as well. So look, that has the absolute makings of an absolute plot job. The John O'Neill Jr. on for JP McManus in the race restricted to conditional jockeys would certainly be very, very notable.
All right, it's the Cheltenham Show, our final one of the week. Obviously everything goes ahead. Organisers have taken the decision that it goes ahead. The punchers, as we've seen over the course of the week, have all decided that they are going to be there. It's 27 minutes past 9 on this Friday morning. We're marking your card for the final day of Cheltenham racing underway at 1:30 today. I think we've Johnny Ward on the line. Morning to you, Johnny.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Things go ahead. Are you surprised?
Amazed, really, to be honest. I've never understood the British people less, or certainly the British government. I mean, either the Irish reaction is 100% over the top, or the British government are getting this badly wrong. And to be getting texts from people almost telling you, like, don't necessarily meet me in the near future if you're coming back from Cheltenham yesterday, was a little bit strange. And I know a lot of people went home last night. Some journalists went home. Some people maybe who didn't absolutely need to be here went home. There's obviously a thin line between paranoia, I suppose, and being aware of the actual dangers of where we're at. But flabbergasted this is going ahead, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the over-the-top reaction has certainly been something that mentioned. I think I'm more comfortable in the environment where the worst thing that's happened is the government has taken decisions over the top, and that's the worst thing that can happen, versus obviously the uncertainty of exactly where we're at.
I mean, just one thing on this. If you were at Cheltenham and the only other outside news you watched perhaps was, say, the Channel 4 news with Boris Johnson's speech, you'd be like, what are the Irish people on about? Like, it's the reaction of the British government compared to Leo Varadkar's speech. What Boris Johnson said last night versus what Leo Varadkar said, talking about the same thing, are night and day. It's very strange.
Is there much sense, Johnny, just in terms of the people that are there and the return home, the return journey obviously today and tomorrow, and the measures that will be taking place both in terms of self-isolation and whatever the government decide after that? Is there much sense or engagement with conversations like that from what you've seen with people over there?
Not really, to be honest, Adrian. No, I went home kind of, I suppose, from the track last night. I went for dinner. Didn't meet that many people last night. So I know I got a couple of texts suggesting that everyone coming home from Cheltenham was going to be in self-isolation for 14 days at the airport. And for a second, I nearly believed that. It was like, well, self-isolation at the airport or self-isolation in my own apartment for 14 days, probably not much of a difference, to be honest. It's funny from a personal level, like I'm a freelance journalist and it's kind of only dawned on me now, like I work primarily on racing in League of Ireland. So a lot of my work is going to be gone now for the next while, but it's just trying to get your head around it and, trying to get your head around the official British government reaction to it, because let's be honest, if anyone does the sums on Cheltenham, how can there not be some sort of repercussions from all these people meeting at Cheltenham over 4 days? A lot of them drinking and probably not maybe being as sanitised and as they should be. And as much as everyone is conscious of it, a lot of people are just kind of basically getting drunk and forgetting about it. And I mean that in the nice possible way. People are just, it's a keep calm and carry on as reality. Now, the keep calm and carry on is absolutely perfect if you've German bombers and there's paranoia. It just doesn't work in this case.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that certainly this public mood here has shifted on so dramatically from when people would have gone over to now. And obviously we've been listening to the engagement around it, and we shall see. One note just before we get stuck into the car, just for people that are watching this morning who will be interested in this. Everton's first team squad and coaching staff are undertaking a period of self-isolation following medical advice. The step has been taken after a first team player reported symptoms consistent with coronavirus. So Finch Farm, Goodison Park and the Royal Liver building have all been shut down. So that's the latest from Everton.
Could you just say one other thing on racing? The HRI have actually made a decision to run racing in Ireland behind closed doors with a series of incredibly strict measures, including things like one stable hand per runner, one connection, one trainer. I mean, and as soon as your horse runs and is cooled down, you have to leave the premises. No bookies, no tote staff, absolute minimum administration staff. So like HRI are out on this and have made a decision and appear to have taken all of the necessary steps to limit things while keeping the show going behind closed doors.
Yeah, just on that, lad. Sorry, I was kind of trying to follow that story yesterday. See, and I've met Brian Kavanagh a couple of times over here, the HRI CEO, and I think as much as you could shut down racing, like has happened in other sports, racing is an outdoor pursuit. For the likes of Dundalk, there won't be that many people there. It'll definitely comfortably fall within the remit of under 500. And as daft as this sounds, at a time of such kind of crisis and pressure and paranoia about what's going on, even for us to have race meetings as something of a distraction and the show to keep going on is definitely something of a boost. And I think life has to go on as well. Not every meeting has been prohibited. So I think HRI took absolutely the right choice. And it's staggering that the guy I was supposed to be going home with tonight on the boat, he's now thinking of staying over and going racing in Uttoxeter tomorrow. And it's like, God, racing is still going on here even after Cheltenham. I'm absolutely bamboozled.
Yeah, it is only a matter of time before that stops, and then everybody says, Jesus, that was a mad few days. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Right, well, we have racing today, Johnny, so let's get into it. We've just been making the case with Paddy and John there, and Thom here, obviously, in relation to the contenders to Album Photo. Where do you stand at?
I think it's going to be an intriguing Gold Cup. It's funny, we just got a text in there saying we had a couple of racing writers with a group. We have a racing writers WhatsApp group where we've arranged these pre-flat mornings for the press, just to kind of build up the flat season. Ger Lyons and Aidan O'Brien, both of them have cancelled in the last 24 hours. Ger Lyons has cancelled this morning, so that's just the Irish reaction. Yeah. Anyway, back to the Gold Cup. I think Album Photo is probably a little bit more vulnerable than he was in the race last year. For a start, Zinti Percy didn't really run his race. He also has to take on Delta Work, Santini, Lost in Translation, who weren't in the race last year. Delta Work might be prone to the odd mistake. He jumped brilliantly at Tremor, but I think there's a lot of depth to the renewal this year.
And when you say that, what are you going for?
I'm going for Delta Work. He's come here in the back of 2 wins at Leopardstown. He's been pretty imperious in both. I think Mark Walsh will suit him. He's absolutely thriving with racing this year. Second season novice, which I quite like in the race. great form around Cheltenham, won over hurdles, ran a blind in the RSA chase when probably he was a little bit unlucky, maybe should have been ridden differently, maybe should have been trained a little bit differently. Gordon Elliott, 6 winners in 3 days. I mean, with all the hysteria of what's going on and just the world coming to an end and all that, you forget how good an achievement that is for a trainer to have 6 winners, 2 winners a day in a meeting as competitive. This is pretty insane. I mean, Willie Mullins, the competition he has to face from him, not to mind everyone else. So the stable confidence going into the race after Sam Crow, obviously yesterday, will be very high, and I can't put Seamer on a big race. Jumps, travels, does everything right.
Yeah, and Elliott's been talking about him as well, and he's good preparation, obviously, and saying that the longer trip might suit him slightly, which might also be the case for Santini.
Yeah, Santini would, I'd say 13 miles, not to mind 3.5. He's just a proper stayer. Thom might reflect on this in terms of the ground. I'm not sure the drying ground. It has been drying since Tuesday, really, is going to suit Santini maybe as much as Delta work. There probably won't be a great deal between them. They both jump pretty soundly. And obviously, Presenting Percy's a fascinating runner. He didn't run his race at all last year. But remember, 12 months ago, he was 130 favourite in the race, despite having an absolutely calamitous prep. Didn't even jump a fence last year. This year, he's had a far better prep, albeit in defeat, and he's much bigger price. Yeah,
I mean, like I said, I just think the Santini angle, he'll just keep staying. Like, I'm not sure he'll win, but like just around 5 to 1, I just cannot see him out of the frame. It's just Willie Mullins, well, on that press day, Johnny, he said he doesn't think it's as strong a Gold Cup, but this looks a far stronger Gold Cup, doesn't it? You consider, like, you know, Native River and Might Bite and the like were involved last year.
Yeah, we can obviously think of Native River and Might Bite as what they were or what they now are. One of them injured, one of them run cross-country race the other day. So they're horses, obviously, that probably had their day to an extent, but it's very dangerous when you're taking on, I know there's a lot of market confidence behind Album Fold. It's very well backed yesterday evening, but you're taking on a horse here that he just hasn't raced against before. So I can't see how he can be overly confident that he's going to beat them. And one of these is probably going to produce, if not 2 of them, going to produce peak performance. And they're really, really solid, classy horses. And Album Photo tactically in the race, how is it going to work out for him? There's going to be competition up front. Will he get into a rhythm? Will he avoid mistakes? The Gold Cup, if you watch it, it's an incredible jumping test. It's bang, 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 bang. You never get a chance to kind of get over getting out of your comfort zone or getting out of some sort of a rhythm, which Presenting Percy never got into last season. And I think there's plenty of depth to this race. I know Willie said that, and Willie's had a decent week all in all. He had a poor start, but his horses are running well. But there's plenty of depth to this.
Give us a couple of horses to watch out for today, and start with the Triumph Hurdle, and you're leaning for Solo, I think, here.
Yeah, I cashed out on my 25 to 1 Solo bet yesterday because I thought the racing was, at the very least, had a very good chance of being called off, in which case you wouldn't get your stake back. So I cashed out for a profit. And then obviously you're reluctant to accept that because the racing is on. So now I kind of have to go in and back him again. But I don't have an issue with that, to be honest. He's 4 to 1. To me, he's the bet of the day at that price. This race is absolutely perfect for him in terms of how it's going to be set up. He's going to probably sit off 2 or 3, particularly All Mankind up front. He's an uber professional, this horse. I really like his chance, and he's massive each way value for me. I think following Zarkander, who won the Adonis for Paul Nicholls and the Triumph in 2011, I hope he can follow suit. Big chance.
I echo everything Johnny says there. Solo, to me, there's shades of Sir Eric about him. He's an Entar as well, which is so rare. But like I say, just an absolute pro. And what about Paul Nicholls as well, Johnny? You know, he went to the pub on Tuesday, no runners, and tips up on Wednesday, and Politolog takes the champion chase. And now he's got Solo, and like the King George winner is no back number in the Gold Cup either. It's some return for him.
No, I dare say plenty of trainers went to the pub on Tuesday, even if they had a runner. It's that type of festival. You see some of the professionals of the game certainly enjoying themselves. Cheltenham, as much as it is the absolute peak of national hunt racing, it's also a bit of a party, and that's been reflected in Cheltenham this week. But Paul Nicholls, I mean, you can pretty much always rely on him to come up with something at Cheltenham in terms of winner. Candace Obo is a fascinating runner. David Jennings put him up at a preview night. I kind of mocked him for considering he's 0 from 5 at Cheltenham. But you can make a case for him on the King George win, and he didn't run badly in the Gold Cup last year. And as long as I've been following racing, Paul Nicholls has been training winners at Cheltenham.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else for you in the card, Johnny?
I think Staker Wallace is quite interesting in the Fox Hunter. My best anti-post position of the second best to Solo maybe is Front View in the Martin Pipe. I think he's a massive chance as well for John Joe Neal Jr. And once Front View goes in, hopefully then I'll start figuring how the hell I'm going to get back to Ireland and self-isolate.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just what do you make of the jockey booking that Jamie Codd has taken Staker Wallace and Derek O'Connor's plump for Manella Rocco?
Well, it's funny with these preview nights because I backed Ravenhill for the Kim Muir on the back of Gordon Elliott, saying that Jamie Codd was going to ride him in the Kim Muir. Now, at the very same preview night, Gordon Elliott gave his charity bet as Milan native in the Kim Muir. So I backed Ravenhill to win the Kim Muir. Of course, then he's rerouted the 4-miler and wins that. And I didn't back Milan native, who was 33-1 at the time. I say that because it was at another preview night. Derek O'Connor says, yeah, I'm going to be riding Staker Wallace. Very exciting horse, this fella. I'm going to ride him in the Fox Hunters. Going to choose him over Manella Rocco. Then you get the jockey bookings and he's riding Manella Rocco. But I wouldn't lose faith because Jamie Codd obviously is best in the business, really, as an amateur. You can't fault him. And this horse trained by Inda Bulger, I think some of the bookies might be offering 5 places in this race. And this horse is massive class, 6-1. As much as it's obviously run over the Gold Cup course, it's not a race that I would be all that energised by. Staker Wallace is a very classy prospect, and I wouldn't be all that put off that Derek doesn't ride him.
Just one thing on that. I mean, 5 places in the Fox Hunters, that's kind of a punter's dream, isn't it? Because so many of these you can just draw a line through straight away. You
can, yeah, and this is probably the best time of year to be betting on horses. As much as it's the most competitive racing of the year, it's also the most competitive bookmaking of the year, where they are bashing into each other to offer you terms to encourage new customers that they hope that they might attract longer term and keep. And so they do want to kind of basically get a lot of custom this week. And it's funny when you think of this. I mean, bookmakers, as much as airlines must be absolutely petrified of where their future is at the moment and how much money they're going to lose in terms of their share price and value and whether airlines are actually going to fold because of the coronavirus, bookmakers could look at this and say, well, if racing continues to go ahead, we could actually get quite a lot of turnover because a lot of people just won't have much to do over the next while. It's going to be a lot of trying to entertain yourself at home, and it's going to be interesting, but a lot of them will probably have opened up an account in Cheltenham week, and the bookies will hopefully have their custom, and some of them might have a bet on the Fox Hunters for 5 places as well.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny. Good man. Be safe. Talk to you.
Thanks, guys. Don't treat me like an absolute pariah when I come back.
We'll see you in about 2 months' time, right? That's
it's your bell.
Good luck, Johnny Ward, on the line there from Cheltenham, which almost wraps up the show for this morning. Anything else from you?
Yeah, I'll just quickly run through them. In the Triumph Hurdle, I'm very much with Solo and Johnny on that one. In the County Hurdle, I just pop up Gordon Elliott. What a week he's had. 6 winners. By the way, he's also had 6 second places and 3 thirds as well. So, 9 non-winners on the podium for him.
We're nearly at the point where people stop asking Michael O'Leary what he thinks about bringing his horses back to Willie Mullins.
Yeah, it's just like, well, maybe. Well, I mean, 4 more years and there'll be no more horses with him apparently, but you always see Eddie at the sales, so they'll be around in some form. But with Gordon and Tatsy, maybe break the Jake McManus hold on the handicap hurdles. One I love at a huge price, and as it's the phrase of the day, another big ignorant galloper in the shape of Vioni. If you look at the Albert Bartlett, it's had 50-1 winner last year, Manella Indo. Obviously, he's a class horse. They've had 33, 16-1 and 28-1 winners since the last winning favourite, which was at Fisher's Cross a few years ago. Ione fits that bill. He just doesn't stop galloping, and that's exactly what you need in this race. You need plenty of experience and you need lots of stamina, and so Ione, I think, is 28-1 in the Albert Bartlett, so he's definitely an each-way play. In the Fox Hunters, as you just said with Johnny there, extra place in this is gold. Loads of these jockeys are useless, right? This is their day. This is their day out. They're just, they're proper Corinthians.
The Amateurs Gold Cup,
yeah.
Is that
But then you have people like Derek O'Connor, Patrick Mullins, Jamie Codd, and they're basically like professionals. So you've such an advantage by having a jockey like that on board. And I'm with John as well. I think Billaway's an outstanding chance. But like I say, if you look at Manella Rocco each way or Staker Wallace each way, anything you're getting it bigger to 5-1 with a good jockey is a good chance. In the Grand Annual, again, look at Gordon Elliott, 6-1 chosen mate, who's absolutely laid out for the race. And Gordon loves to win the conditional handicap as well. He's got the Boss's Oscar, even though I wouldn't put anyone off front view, as the lad said. But the Boss's Oscar is a really decent price in a race because the Martin Pipe conditional jockeys, and Gordon Elliott worked for Martin Pipe for years and basically learned his trade there. So he's won the race several times before, and he has a whole load in it. But at a big price, the Boss's Oscar for me.
Plenty of value in there, and
big prices.
Thom's tips up on offtheball.com. Can he add to his 6 winners so far? We shall see. The pressure is on heading into the final day to see if Thom can finish top of the tipsters for the week. That is pretty much it. 9:43 on this Friday morning. The final day of Cheltenham obviously upon us, and if you missed anything from the Cheltenham Show all during the week and from this morning, you can watch it back on YouTube. Subscribe to highlights from OTB as well up in the OTB podcast network. And as I mentioned, if you head along to the website, Tom's tips are there, John's tips are there, the OTB Tipster Table as well, where we've done a sweep. Jake has been around all the tipsters to see, pull in all the value for you there, and much more as well over across the days racing gets underway. And if you want tips straight to your phone, you can just send us a WhatsApp on OTB. So just send OTB to 087 9180 180, and we'll get back to you with all the tips today. The Cheltenham Show brought to you in association with our Cheltenham partner Paddy Power. Off the ball back in your radio tonight from 7, from 1 o'clock on Saturday, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Again, stay tuned to OTB Sports Radio, where you can listen to our sports radio station all day long. Good luck.
The Cheltenham Show.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Paddy Power. Cheltenham's coming home.